Where does faith come from? Some people say, I'll believe it if I see it. But that isn't where faith comes from. So many people saw what Jesus did in his ministry, but they didn't believe. God's word says, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. There's something about connecting us with the word of Christ in a way that we hear what it is saying, that we then have faith. Paul, in leading up to this verse, has introduced to us how people have reacted to God's word. So he already told us, for everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. But then he gives this chain of people. How can they call, okay, on someone on whom they've not believed, without having heard, without someone preaching to them, and without that person being sent? In other words, how could you hear? And then he gives this complaint, but they have not all obeyed the gospel. So even with all that process, Paul's complaining to God, they've not obeyed the gospel. And he quotes Isaiah giving the same complaint, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? And that's where he says, so faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. This is huge to me. Jesus would often end his teachings by saying, he who has an ear to hear, let him hear. There's something about hearing that has to happen inside us. In our daycare, we often have to tell the kids, do you have your listening ears on? Because we've tried to talk to them so many times and they didn't hear. What about you? Got your listening ears on?